Okay, so we just saw the essence of simple or single exponential smoothing, and now we're going to talk about how you would choose the setting of the knob. It has one knob, one parameter, and you can get much better or worse results depending on whether you get the right value of alpha. So what does it mean to pick the right value of alpha? Remember, the equation is that the smooth at time t is a combination alpha times the actual observation plus 1 minus alpha times the previous idea of where the middle was. So what is alpha? Well, there's a simple way to think about this. Alpha can be up as far as 1 or down close to 0. And as alpha approaches 1, we could say that the resulting smooth is fast and fickle. And as alpha goes in the other direction and gets smaller, it gets closer to 0, we could say it's smooth and sluggish. And let me show you in pictures what that means. Let's imagine now we have a data series that does drift. So here is our data, x of t, which might be something like sales. And here's time, which might be something like days, weeks, or months. And let's suppose that the data is doing something like this, and then suddenly the world is different, and it's up there. So it's floated. It's changed. The level has changed. Now, if alpha is a very big number, suppose alpha was 1, then 1 minus alpha is 0. This goes away, and we're just saying our idea of where the middle is just the most recent data point, which we know is kind of wacky because that data point is level plus this random noise, and we're building the head fakes into our forecast. But that's the extreme case. But it's saying I'm going to give a lot more weight to the most recent data. But the most recent data is pretty volatile, and so the smooth is going to be volatile too. That's why it's going to be fickle. But it will adjust quickly. It'll be fast in responding to that the change in the level. So for that situation, our smooth will actually not be very smooth, and it'll jump up, it'll lag a little, but it will catch up pretty quickly, but it will itself be pretty volatile, which leads to some uncertainty about where the forecast is going to be. So that's what happens when alpha approaches 1. It's fickle in the sense that it's not very stable, and so it keeps changing its mind about where the level is. But if there's a big shift, it gets up and reacts to that pretty quickly because it's giving a lot of weight to this black line relative to its own back story. But if we have alpha closer to 0, then as new data come in, it gets very little weight. It changes this estimate of the smooth very little. 1 minus alpha might be 99%, and this might be 1%. So this one is going to be 99%, the last one, plus a little bit of adjustment. So that'll be very smooth. So you'll get something that's a lot smoother. On the other hand, as there's a big shift, it keeps giving it a tiny weight. And so it's going to take a long time before it cottons on to the fact that there's been a shift. And so that's the story of smooth but sluggish. And somewhere in between is going to be the right level for every particular value, for every particular SKU or item that you're forecasting. But that's the trade-off. If you think you're in a very volatile world where these kinds of massive shifts can happen all the time, you want to have high values of this alpha. And if you think you're in a very stable market, very stable environment without a lot of turbulence, then you're going to do well by ignoring the data, in a sense, it's mostly just noise, and the underlying dynamics don't change much from day to day or week to week. And so you want to have a small value of alpha, and you don't worry about not about reacting too slowly to changes because you don't expect changes. So that's the basic trade-off. You have to have a number, though, to do the calculations. And there is a way to think about the best alpha, and that's going to be the subject of a separate little tutorial talk where we talk about automatic forecasting and searching the possible values of alpha to get the ones that seem to forecast this item best. So if you have 1,000 items, you'll find some at the end of the calculations which have very low alphas, some middle and some high. And that alpha is actually a kind of a summary of how volatile the demand is for each of those SKUs. So that's the inherent trade-off between fickle and fast or sluggish and smooth.